Have you ever noticed that the most disciplined people rarely talk about motivation? They don't wake up each day feeling inspired. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They simply show up and do what needs to be done every single day without compromise. While some wait for the urge to act, these individuals have already taken action. While many look for quick motivation in YouTube videos, these people have already trained, studied, and performed. And when people ask how they manage it, the answer isn't about emotions. It's about something much older, much deeper. In 10th century Japan, during the Heian period, there was a concept that separated ordinary men from legends. This idea wasn't about physical strength or intelligence. It was about something the Japanese called Yamato Damashii, the Japanese spirit. It's the inner force that moves the body even when the mind wants to stop. This principle created unbeatable warriors and generals who changed history. Centuries later, it was misused during World War II for militaristic propaganda and extreme nationalism. But the original meaning of Yamato Damashii had nothing to do with war. It was about one simple yet profoundly powerful idea: duty above feeling. Today, you'll learn what this ancient principle truly means, and how it can transform someone who knows a lot but acts little into someone who cannot stop taking action. But before we dive in, I need to tell the story of a man who had all the knowledge in the world but lacked the courage to use it. And first, I need to make something clear. There are two kinds of motivation. One is the superficial type, which we can call excitement. The other is deeper, more meaningful motivation, the kind that actually drives action. We can call this second type ikigai. If you watched the last video on the channel, you'll know what I'm referring to. In this video, we're going to explore why the first type, excitement, lacks the power to get you where you need to go. I want to make this clear from the start so there's no confusion. Before we dive in, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Share the action you tend to put off the most in your life. What goal do you want to achieve? Already know the steps for, yet keep delaying while seeking more information? Leave your comment, and if you see others sharing similar struggles, help them out. Maybe you have advice from your own experience or expertise. Let's build a community where people help one another and strive to improve together. Thank you for your time and attention. Now back to the video. Chapter 1. The Man Who Knew Everything and Did Nothing, Year 950, Heian Period, Japan. Tadayoshi was 24 years old and had already read more books than most men twice his age. Born into a noble family, he had access to Chinese classics, Buddhist texts, and the teachings of Confucius. While other young nobles wasted their days on parties and poetry, Tadayoshi dedicated himself to studying military strategy, battle tactics, and the philosophy of war. He dreamed of becoming a great warrior, perhaps even a general who could change the course of Japan's history. But there was a critical problem: he couldn't act. Every morning, Tadayoshi woke with ambitious plans. Today would be the day. Today he would finally begin real training. Today he intended to pick up his sword and train until his hands bled. But then it happened. He discovered a new book, a text on a technique he hadn't fully mastered. And he thought, how can I train without understanding the theory completely first? He read, studied, memorized, and by the time he felt ready to act, the day had ended. Tomorrow, he promised himself. Tomorrow I'll start. The household servants began to whisper. Other nobles laughed behind his back. Tadayoshi, the warrior of books, they mocked. He can kill with knowledge, but never with a sword. The truth was painful because it was real. He had enough technical knowledge to train soldiers. Yet he had never truly trained himself. He had never felt his muscles burn from hours of practice, never endured the discomfort that turns theory into real skill. One day, his father, a stern man and former military advisor, spoke words that would pierce any man. You have the mind of a general but the heart of a scribe. Knowledge without action is worthless. You are a ghost pretending to be alive. Tadayoshi couldn't sleep that night. His father's words echoed like thunder. He knew they were true. All that knowledge, all those years of study, yet he remained the same. Weak, hesitant, trapped within his own mind. The next morning, something changed. He didn't open a book. He left. Chapter 2. The meeting in the forest. Tadayoshi wandered aimlessly through the forest near his family's estate. The air was crisp, the sun barely risen. He didn't know what he was seeking. Clarity, perhaps, or an excuse to return to his books. Then he heard it. A rhythmic, repetitive sound. Metal cutting through air, wood striking wood. He followed the sound to a small clearing where he saw a man. He appeared to be around 50, with graying hair tied back in a simple bun, his body marked by old scars. He moved with a wooden sword, repeating the same motions over and over, hundreds of times. The same cut, the same stance, the same breathing. Tadayoshi watched, captivated. There was no emotion on the man's face. No sign of strain or pleasure, just movement. Steady, precise, and relentless. When the man finally stopped, Tadayoshi stepped forward. "Master," he began, using the term of respect without knowing if it was deserved. "I've watched you train. You have a discipline I've never seen. Please teach me." The man examined him from head to toe, noticing the fine clothes, soft hands, and posture of someone who had never labored physically. "No," he said simply, beginning to walk away. "Wait," Tadayoshi pleaded. "I've studied all the techniques. I know Sun Tzu. I understand the strategies of Chinese generals. I can learn quickly." The man stopped and turned slowly, his eyes cold and hard as stone. "You know techniques? Good. Use them yourself." And then he continued walking. Tadayoshi felt a fire ignite in his chest. Shame, anger, desperation. "Please," he called out. "I need to change. I need to become more than I am." The man stopped again, silent for a long moment. Finally, without looking back, he said, "You're going to give up." "I won't," Tadayoshi replied immediately. "Everyone gives up. I am not going." The man turned to study Tadayoshi's face. He saw despair, but despair alone wasn't enough. Despair was just another feeling, and feelings pass. Perhaps this young noble needed to realize things for himself. "Tomorrow before sunrise, be here. If you show up, I'll consider teaching you. If not, don't ever come back." Tadayoshi nodded earnestly. "I'll be here. I promise." The man almost laughed, promises as if they meant anything. Chapter 3. The first day Tadayoshi couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the man's stern face and heard the words, "You're going to give up." He couldn't give up, not this time. He arrived at the clearing an hour before dawn. The air was dark and cold. He waited, shivering, until the first rays of sunlight touched the trees. The man appeared silently like a ghost. He looked at Tadayoshi with an expression that might have been surprise or disappointment. It was hard to tell. "You came," the man said. It wasn't praise, just an observation. "I said I would come," Tadayoshi replied. "Words," the man murmured. "Today I'll see if you have anything more than words." What followed was grueling. The man, who revealed his name as Kaido, began simply. A basic stance. Crouched, knees bent, back straight, arms extended, holding a wooden sword. "This position is the foundation of everything," he explained. "How long?" Tadayoshi asked. "Until I tell you to stop." 2 minutes later, Tadayoshi's legs were shaking. 5 minutes in, he was drenched in cold sweat. 10 minutes later, every muscle in his body screamed to move. Straighten or stop. "Master, I don't—" Silence. Kito sat on a rock, watching Tadayoshi with the same impassive expression. "Your mind is telling you to stop." "It lies." 15 minutes had passed. Tadayoshi felt tears welling in his eyes, not from sadness but from sheer physical agony. I can't stop," he admitted. Kito spoke suddenly. Tadayoshi slumped forward, breathing as if he'd run a marathon. His legs shook uncontrollably. He looked at Kaido, hoping for, what, understanding? Encouragement? What he saw instead was disappointment. 15 minutes, Kito said. "And you already want to give up. Do you think battles last 15 minutes? Do you think enemies wait for you to get comfortable?" Tadayoshi lowered his head, overwhelmed with shame. "Go home," Kaido said, standing. "You don't have what it takes." Something inside Tadayoshi broke, but at the same time something awoke. "No," he said, forcing himself to stand on shaking legs. "I'll do it again." Kito regarded him with new interest. "You think motivation will save you? The anger you feel now will pass. Tomorrow you may not want to return." "I'll be back," Tadayoshi replied. "Why?" Kaido asked, not rhetorically but as a test. Tadayoshi opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. Why would he come back? Because he wanted to be a warrior. Because he was ashamed. These were feelings. And Kaido was right. Feelings pass. "You don't know," Kaido said. "And because you don't know, you won't last." He began to walk away. "Wait!" Tadayoshi shouted. "Tell me, why should I come back?" Kaido stopped and turned slowly. Because it is your duty. Duty? Tadayoshi repeated, confused. Duty to whom? To yourself. To the man you promised to become. Motivation is a feeling. Duty is an order. Feelings shift with the wind. Duty remains even in the storm. Kaido took another step, then stopped again. We Japanese have a word for this, he said. Yamato Damashii, the Japanese spirit. It's not about feeling like doing it. It's about doing it because it is who you are. Chapter 4. The second day and the first lesson, Tadayoshi returned the next day. Not because he wanted to. His body ached, his legs barely supported him, every muscle protested. But he remembered Kaido's words. Duty remains even in the storm. Kaido was waiting. This time his expression was different. Not approval, but recognition. You're back, he said. I said I'd be back, Tadayoshi replied. Yesterday you said it with emotion. Today you say it with weariness. Which is truer? Tadayoshi thought carefully. Yesterday I was motivated. Today I'm doing my duty. One fades, the other remains. Kaido had him assume the same posture as yesterday. Before starting, he explained, Yamato Damashii isn't something you feel. It's something you practice until it becomes who you are. I'll teach you. What did you study in the books? Kaido asked as Tadayoshi held the posture. Battle strategies, Tadayoshi replied through gritted teeth. Tactics, formations. And that made you a warrior? No, why not? Tadayoshi paused, focused on enduring the pain. Because I didn't act, he finally admitted. Partially correct, Kaido said. Knowledge alone, Chinese texts and strategies cannot make a warrior. Action makes the difference. All that studying you did is valuable. The classics teach strategy. They teach wisdom. But there's an old saying, knowledge is of little use without Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi felt his legs tremble again. Do you know what that means? Kaido continued. It means you could know how to win every battle in the world. But if you don't have the soul to show up on the battlefield, that knowledge is worthless. Yamato Damashii is the spirit that turns knowledge into action. It's what keeps you moving when every part of you wants to stop. Tadayoshi's legs gave way and he fell. 20 minutes this time. 5 minutes longer than yesterday. Kaido nodded. Progress. Not because your body is stronger. Your body is weaker than yesterday. You've progressed because you've learned that pain isn't the enemy. Hesitation is the enemy. Centuries later, a human behavior researcher at the University of Tokyo, after studying samurai culture for over 15 years, would explain that Yamato Damashii during the Heian period wasn't about militarism. It marked the distinction between imported intellectual knowledge and innate practical wisdom. Studying Chinese theories was important, but without the ability to act decisively, without the spirit, that knowledge remained sterile. It was the difference between knowing how to swim and actually swimming. Chapter 5. The lesson of the river. On the third day, Tadayoshi arrived just in time for dawn. Kaido was waiting, but this time they didn't stay in the clearing. Today you'll understand the difference between doing it because you want to and doing it because you have to, Kaido said. Follow me, he added. They walked to a nearby river. The water was fast and icy cold. Kaido pointed to a rock in the middle of the river. You will stay on that rock, maintaining your stance until I tell you to leave. Tadayoshi looked at the water. For how long? Until you understand. Tadayoshi stepped into the river. The water was so cold it felt like knives against his skin. He jumped onto the rock, slipped, nearly fell, but managed to regain his balance. He assumed his stance. The water lapped against his legs. The cold was unbearable. 5 minutes in, his body shook uncontrollably. 10 minutes, and he could no longer feel his feet. 15 minutes, and panic began to rise. Every cell screamed, "Get out!" He glanced at Kaido on the shore. The old man sat motionless, watching him. "Master," Tadayoshi shouted. "I can't take it." "Your ancestors endured," Kaido shouted back. They stood on battlefields for days. They marched with open wounds. They fought until their last breath. And you can't endure cold water? But why? Tadayoshi yelled. Why do I have to do this? Because it is your duty, Kaido roared. His voice echoed through the forest. You asked me to teach you. You promised to become a warrior. That is not a request, it is a declaration. And declarations demand duty. Tadayoshi closed his eyes. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with the river water. He thought about giving up. He thought about leaving. It would be so easy. But then he remembered his father's words. You have the mind of a general and the heart of a scribe. He remembered the laughter of the other nobles, the mockery of the warrior of books. All those years of studying, reading, and planning, and nothing had changed. He wasn't that man anymore. Not now. Not here. The cold remained, the pain remained. But something shifted inside him. He stopped resisting it. He accepted it. I'm here because I choose to be. I stay because I must. He didn't notice how much time had passed. Finally, Kaido shouted, "Get out!" Tadayoshi jumped off the rock. His legs barely responded. Kaido helped him out of the river and guided him to a fire that was already burning. 45 minutes, Kaido said. You stayed 45 minutes. Tadayoshi stared in disbelief. It had felt like hours. Do you know what happened there? Kaido asked. For the first 15 minutes you fought the discomfort and it exhausted you. Then something changed. You stopped fighting. You accepted the cold as your duty. And when you accepted it, paradoxically, it became easier. Not because the pain lessened, but because you stopped adding mental suffering to physical pain. Kaido added fuel to the lesson. This is Yamato Damashii. It's not about feeling nothing. It's about not letting feelings control your actions. Did you feel cold? Yes. Did you feel like leaving? Yes. But you stayed because duty does not negotiate with discomfort. Chapter 6. The master explains the origin that night. Kaido allowed Tadayoshi to return home early, but first they sat by the river, listening to the rushing water. Do you know why I taught you about Yamato Damashii? Kaido asked. Tadayoshi shook his head. Because you are exactly the kind of man this concept was created to save. Kaido looked up at the stars. Centuries ago, our elite studied Chinese classics, Buddhism, Confucianism, strategy, philosophy. They were brilliant men. But many of them were like you. They knew everything and did nothing. Knowledge without soul, theory without practice. It was then our ancestors realized something. They needed a word to describe the difference between men who only knew and men who actually did. It wasn't enough to have Kazukai Chinese knowledge. You needed Yamato Damashii, the native spirit, the soul that drives you to act even when you don't want to. It wasn't about being anti-Chinese or anti-foreign, Kaido continued. It was about recognizing that knowledge is the tool, but spirit is the craftsman. You can have the finest sword in the world, but without the courage to wield it, it's just a piece of metal. Tadayoshi absorbed every word. Do you know what truth those ancients discovered? Kaido asked. Practical wisdom, the ability to solve real problems, make decisions under pressure, act when action is required, doesn't come from books. It comes from doing, from showing up, from fulfilling your duty even when every part of you wants to run away. Yamato Damashii was this: the difference between the scholar who debates war and the warrior who fights in war, between the poet who writes about courage and the man who acts with courage, between the man you were 3 days ago and the man you are now. Chapter 7. The Great Temptation. Week 2. Tadayoshi had made progress. He could hold poses longer, his muscles responding better. But now came the true test. It was the full moon festival, an event for all the elite. Music, poetry, Seiki celebration. Tadayoshi had been invited. The night before he could hardly sleep, not from excitement but from internal conflict. He had trained 7 days straight. One night of indulgence wouldn't matter, right? He deserved rest. He deserved fun. On the morning of the 8th day, he did not appear in the clearing. Kaido waited, watching the sun rise. Tadayoshi didn't come. He had spent the night at home sleeping after partying. When he woke, guilt hit him immediately. After a week of training and all his promises, he had failed. The next day, he went to the clearing, expecting it to be empty. Kaido might be so disappointed that he wouldn't return, but Kaido was there, waiting. His face didn't show anger, it showed something worse, sadness. You missed it, Kaido said. It was the festival. Tadayoshi remained silent. Kaido spoke again, not with anger but with quiet weariness. You don't owe me an explanation. You owe yourself one and you failed. Tadayoshi felt tears well up. I'm sorry. Please let me continue. It was a mistake. It was a choice. Exactly, Kaido corrected. You chose comfort over duty, pleasure over promise. And do you know what that proves? You still don't understand Yamato Damashii. You still think it's about doing it when it's convenient? Kaido started to turn away. Wait, Tadayoshi begged. Give me one more chance. I understand now. I really understand. Do you understand? Kaido asked, turning back. Then explain to me, what is Yamato Damashii? Tadayoshi took a deep breath. It's doing it even when you don't want to. Partially correct. Continue. It's duty over feeling, Tadayoshi added. That's a consequence, not the essence, deeper. Tadayoshi closed his eyes and reflected on everything he had learned. The river's cold, the pain of the postures. Then he understood. It's who you are, not just what you do. It's your identity. When I break it, I'm not breaking a habit. I'm betraying who I declared myself to be. Kaido was silent for a long moment, then nodded. Now you're beginning to understand. Yesterday you chose pleasure, Kaido continued. Today you must face the consequence. Every choice has a price. Yesterday's choice carries a cost today. What Kaido did next broke Tadayoshi completely. He made him hold the posture for 2 hours straight. No mercy. As Tadayoshi trembled and cried, Kaido said, This pain, you chose it yesterday. When you break your duty, you don't escape consequences. You only postpone them, and they return harsher. In that moment, Tadayoshi realized something that transformed his understanding of discipline. The problem was never about not knowing what to do. The problem was that he had been playing the wrong game. Chapter 8. Identity, not action. The next day, Kaido changed his approach. Instead of focusing on physical training, he had Tadayoshi sit. Do you think discipline is about doing difficult things? Kaido asked. It is not. Discipline is about being someone for whom these actions are non-negotiable. There's a huge difference between I should train and I am someone who trains. One is desire. The other is identity. The other element is identity Kaido drew in the dirt. Look, when you say I want to be a warrior, you create distance between who you are now and who you aim to be. That distance allows negotiation. I want to, but not today. I want to, but I'm tired. But when you say I am a warrior, there is no distance. No negotiation. Warriors train not because they want to, but because it's what warriors do. It's identity, not choice. Tadayoshi felt something click in his mind. So Yamato Damashii isn't about forcing action? Exactly, Kaido said, smiling for the first time in weeks. Yamato Damashii is about fully embodying an identity so that action flows naturally. You stop asking, should I? And simply do it because it's impossible not to. It's who you are. Think of the great warriors of the past. They didn't wake each day deciding whether to train. That question didn't exist. They were warriors. Warriors train. That's it. The problem with your book knowledge, Kaido continued, wasn't that you had knowledge. It was that you identified as a scholar who wanted to be a warrior, not as a warrior who studies. Do you see the difference? Tadayoshi saw it clearly for the first time. In the coming months, Kaido said, I will teach you to change your identity, not through thought, but through repetition so consistent that your body and mind have no choice but to accept that you are no longer who you were. Chapter 9. The transformation. The following months were brutal, but something fundamental shifted in Tadayoshi. He stopped negotiating with himself. Kaido taught a simple principle: decide once, act 1,000 times. Tadayoshi decided who he was, not who he wanted to be, but who he truly was. Then he lived as that person without question for 90 days. Every day before sunrise. No exceptions, no, not today. No, I'm too tired. The question, am I going to train today? Simply disappeared. Of course he would. Warriors train, and he was a warrior. Something remarkable began in week 6. Tadayoshi woke before his alarm, his body already preparing automatically. By week 8, he realized he no longer even thought about training. It simply happened, he simply showed up. Kaido watched with satisfaction. See what happened? Your brain finally accepted it. You're not forcing it anymore, it's flowing naturally. But the real transformation came on day 63. Tadayoshi woke up sick, fever, aching body, foggy mind. The old voice in his head whispered, Today you must rest. He got up anyway and staggered into the clearing. Kaido saw his condition immediately. You're sick, Kaido said. I am, Tadayoshi admitted. Why did you come? Without thinking, Tadayoshi replied, Because that's who I am. Kaido smiled. Not a small smile, but a wide, genuine smile of pride. Now you understand. Yamato Damashii isn't about strength. It's about being unshakable, not in power but in identity. Go home, Kaido said gently. Rest today. You've already proven your point. You didn't come to prove yourself to me. You came because you couldn't help it. You've changed. Tadayoshi returned home, but something fundamental had shifted. He didn't feel guilty about resting because it wasn't a break. It was strategy. Warriors rest to fight better tomorrow. Weak people rest to avoid the fight. The difference is intention, identity, and purpose. Chapter 10. The final lesson, day 90. 3 months of non-stop training. Tadayoshi was no longer the same man. Physically, he was transformed. Muscles where there had been softness, calluses replacing tender skin. But the real change was invisible. Kaido sat him down for the final time. You've completed your Ango, your intensive training period. Now I will tell you the truth you needed to discover for yourself. Yamato Damashii was never about training. It was about death and rebirth. The Tadayoshi who arrived 3 months ago, the man who knew everything but did nothing, he was gone. Every day he woke and chose duty over comfort. He killed that version of himself and was born anew. The books you read weren't wrong, Kaido continued. The knowledge you have is valuable. But knowledge without a soul is a corpse, beautiful perhaps, but dead. Yamato Damashii is the soul that gives life to knowledge. It transforms information into wisdom, theory into practice, intention into reality. Kaido stood and led Tadayoshi to an open field. Waiting there were 20 armed men, soldiers, real warriors. These men are from a nearby clan, Kaido explained. They need an instructor, someone who understands strategy but has proven they can act. Someone who possesses Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi looked at the soldiers, then back at Kaido. You're recommending me? No, Kaido said. I'm giving you your duty. You spent 3 months learning to be a warrior. Now you will teach others to be warriors, not just through books, though your books are useful, but through example, identity, through Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi felt a tightness in his throat. I don't know if I'm ready. No one is, Kaido replied. But warriors don't wait to feel ready. They show up and become ready through action. You know that now. Chapter 11. The true meaning. Before introducing Tadayoshi to the soldiers, Kaido pulled him aside. Let me tell you something about Yamato Damashii that few understand. There's an old saying our ancestors used. Knowledge is of little use without Yamato Damashii. You've heard this before, but now I'll explain why it matters so much. For a moment, Kaido reflected. Our elite were obsessed with Chinese culture. And it's true. The Chinese had incredible knowledge, philosophy, strategy, art. But some Japanese nobles began to realize a problem. They knew all about war but had never fought. They knew all about governing but couldn't make hard decisions. They knew all about courage but had never tested it. They had Karazukai, Chinese knowledge, but they lacked Yamato Damashii, the spirit to put that knowledge into action. Knowledge without spirit is useless. You were exactly like that 3 months ago, Kaido said, looking Tadayoshi in the eye. You had studied military strategy from the Chinese classics. You could quote Sun Tzu, debate tactics, explain formations. But you had never sweated, never felt your muscles burn, never forced your body to do what your mind said was impossible. Your knowledge was dead because it had no soul to bring it to life. Kaido continued, Yamato Damashii doesn't reject foreign knowledge, it completes it. It turns theory into practice. It transforms I know into I do. That's the true essence of the concept. It's not about being Japanese or Chinese, Kaido added. Wisdom comes from 2 sources. Intellectual knowledge and lived experience. Lived experience is the spirit that makes you act, suffer, persist, and transform. That is Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi nodded slowly. Everything clicked. It wasn't about rejecting his studies. It was about completing them through action. It was about bridging theory and reality. Now go, Kaido said, and teach these men not just what you know, but who you have become. Chapter 12. 5 years later, 5 years had passed since that first day in the clearing. Tadayoshi, now 29, had become exactly what he had dreamed. Not just a warrior, but a general, a leader whose men followed him out of respect, not fear. He commanded 300 soldiers. He had won 3 significant battles. But more importantly, he taught what Kaido had taught him, Yamato Damashii. Their soldiers weren't the strongest. They didn't have the best equipment. But they possessed something their enemies did not: unwavering discipline. When orders came, they executed them without hesitation or internal debate. Not blindly, but because it was part of their identity. "We are Tadayoshi's soldiers," they said, "and Tadayoshi's soldiers don't break." One day, a young recruit approached Tadayoshi. He reminded Tadayoshi of his younger self, intelligent, studious, but weak. "General," the young man said, "I've read all the manuals. I know all the techniques, but in training I freeze. I know what to do, yet I can't do it." Why? Tadayoshi smiled. He had been waiting for this question for years, knowing that one day he would pass on what Kaido had taught him. "Because you have knowledge without a soul," Tadayoshi replied. "Knowledge tells you what to do. Yamato Damashii makes you do it. Come with me tomorrow before sunrise. I will teach you what no book can teach." The next day, in a forest clearing, a new cycle began. A Japanese historian specializing in the Han period, who devoted years to studying cultural evolution, explains, "What modern people often misunderstand about Yamato Damashii is that it was never anti-intellectual. It was pro-action. The Han elite became so absorbed in studying Chinese classics that their learning became ineffective. Yamato Damashii was the antidote, not rejecting knowledge, but insisting that knowledge without execution is worthless. It's a call to complement theory with practice, study with action, thought with movement." Chapter 13. Distortion and Return. Tadayoshi lived to be 67. He witnessed many changes in Japan, yet he never forgot what Kaido had taught him, and he never stopped living by Yamato Damashii. But the story did not end with men like Tadayoshi and Kaido. Centuries later, as Japan approached World War II, the concept was misappropriated. Militaristic governments took Yamato Damashii, a profound principle of complementing knowledge with action, of having the spirit to execute, and twisted it into something dark and destructive. They claimed Yamato Damashii meant dying for the emperor, that it demanded blind nationalism, that the Japanese spirit was superior to all others, that soldiers should fight to the death, not out of personal duty, but out of fanatical obedience. That was not Yamato Damashii. It was propaganda, twisting the name of something sacred. The real Yamato Damashii, the one Kaido taught, the one that transformed Tadayoshi, had nothing to do with national pride. It was about personal mastery, not being better than others, but being better than your past self. It was about the inner battle, killing the version of yourself that negotiates, that procrastinates, that knows but doesn't act, and being reborn as someone who executes consistently, not out of emotion but out of identity. Today, the term Yamato Damashii carries the scars of that dark period. Many Japanese avoid using it, yet its essence, the truth, has never died. It lives every time someone chooses duty over feeling, every time someone shows up despite reluctance, every time knowledge becomes action, theory becomes practice, and intention becomes reality. Chapter 14. Applying Yamato Damashii today. You don't have to be a samurai to live Yamato Damashii. You don't even have to be Japanese. At its core, Yamato Damashii isn't about culture. It's a universal human truth. The truth is simple. Motivation is unreliable. Excitement is fleeting. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings shift with the wind. You might feel motivated on Monday, but not on Tuesday. Wednesday, you feel exhausted. Friday, you give up. Sunday, you promise to start again. This cycle destroys dreams, stifles potential, and prevents you from becoming who you could be. Yamato Damashii provides the solution. Here's how it works. First, stop making promises about what you'll do. Make declarations about who you are. Don't say, "I go to the gym." Say, "I'm someone who works out." Don't say, "I should read more." Say, "I'm someone who reads every day." It may seem subtle, but this shift changes everything. Second, understand that duty is non-negotiable. When you declare, "I am someone who does X," you're not creating purpose, you're creating identity. And identity doesn't take days off. You don't get a day off from being yourself. You are you every single day. Third, accept that transformation requires pain. Breaking the cycle of comfort, forming good habits, abandoning bad ones, and surrendering your desires is hard. Pain is a bitter pill, uncomfortable at first but eventually healing. Fourth, knowledge without action is meaningless. You can study training for years and remain weak, read about business and stay broke, or learn about relationships and remain alone. Why? Because you have Karazukai knowledge but lack Yamato Damashii, the spirit to act. Knowledge shows the path. Yamato Damashii makes you walk it. Fifth, consistency beats intensity. Tadayoshi didn't become a warrior in a single day of grueling training. He became one through 90 days of showing up every day, even when sick, tired, or unwilling. Transformation doesn't come from one heroic effort. It comes from 1,000 small acts of duty fulfilled. So don't obsess over impossible tasks. Instead of cramming 16 hours of study in one day, focus on 3 or 4 hours consistently, every day. Don't measure success by hours per day. Measure it by the number of days you sustain the habit. But there was one final secret that Kaio revealed to Tadayoshi only on the last day. A secret that completely redefines how you understand discipline. And it's something few have ever heard. Chapter 15. The final secret on the last day of Tadayoshi's 90-day training, Kaio said something that sounded almost contradictory. Now that you've mastered Yamato Damashii, I'll teach you when to break it. Tadayoshi was confused. Break it? But you said duty is non-negotiable. Kaio nodded. It doesn't negotiate. But there's a difference between breaking out of weakness and adjusting out of wisdom. Let me explain. He continued. Yamato Damashii isn't about self-punishment. It's not about destroying your body or mind in the name of blind consistency. It's about serving a greater purpose, not mindlessly following rules. If you are truly sick, not lazy but genuinely unwell, resting isn't breaking Yamato Damashii. It's honoring it. Because recovery allows you to serve better tomorrow. It's not running away simply because you don't want to act today. Do you see the difference? Tadayoshi realized it was about intention. Warriors rest strategically to fight stronger. Kaio added, cowards rest emotionally to avoid facing the challenge. Same action, opposite purpose. The test, Kaio explained, was simple. Ask yourself, why am I stopping today? If the answer is, I don't want to, or it's hard, or I deserve a break, you're negotiating. Kill that thought. Execute anyway. But if the answer is, my body needs recovery to perform better tomorrow, that's not negotiating. It's strategy. Yamato Damashii without wisdom is fanaticism, Kaio said. Yamato Damashii with wisdom is mastery. Never confuse the two. That was the final lesson and the most important one. Yamato Damashii was never meant to create robots who follow blindly. Its purpose was to create warriors who act with intention, who understand that discipline serves something greater. Duty isn't a prison. It's the freedom to decide once and live 1,000 times without the weight of constant decisions. Tadayoshi's story may have ended, but the truth he discovered hasn't. That truth is available to you right now in this moment. You don't need more motivation. Motivation is temporary, it fades. What you need is Yamato Damashii. You need an identity so strong that action isn't a choice, it's inevitable. You must understand this. All the knowledge you have, the courses, the books, the videos, the strategies are meaningless without the spirit to act. Knowledge alone is of little use. It is Yamato Damashii that transforms knowledge into action. You need to accept that the person you are today, the one who plans but doesn't act, who knows but doesn't execute, who promises but doesn't deliver, must cease to exist. And it is you who can defeat that version every single day. By showing up, by taking action even when you don't want to, by being consistent when it's inconvenient. In their place, someone new is born, someone unwavering, someone who doesn't negotiate, someone people look at and wonder, how do they do it? The answer is simple, they don't do it. They are it. This is Yamato Damashii. It isn't a Japanese technique, it's a universal human truth. It is the difference between dreaming and living, between wanting and being, between dead knowledge and living wisdom. When you finally understand this, not just intellectually, but deeply in your soul, you'll realize you'll never need motivation again. Because you won't be doing things. You'll be someone, and someone like that cannot help but act. If this video changed the way you see discipline and action, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss future content. If you're watching on your phone, give this video a like to help it reach more people. Remember, knowledge without Yamato Damashii is just dead information taking up space in your mind. Knowledge with Yamato Damashii is the power to transform your life. The choice is yours, but act quickly. Every day you delay, the old version of you grows stronger. And one day if you don't act, it will win. If you've watched this far, thank you. You've already shown you have something most people don't. Now use it. Take action. Be present. Walk with honor. Follow the path. I'll see you in the next video.